Hello, baseball fans. We're just getting here. We'll give it a couple minutes here for everybody to get settled in here. Then we'll answer all your questions. We'll get into the good MLB Sunday talk. So I'm glad everybody was here. We pushed it off till 2:30 today just because there was a few people who had a couple things to do. So they asked and I said, sure. So really appreciate everybody who joins me here. As I said, I'm a brand new YouTuber. I know I say this all the time, but for anybody who's just joining me for the first time, really appreciate you tuning in before we have any green screens or bells and whistles, all those fancy things. That's going to happen soon. But more importantly, we're here today to talk about Sunday Talk. Give me one moment here and we'll be right back. There we go. So as we get into the Sunday Talk here, we got one of the questions coming up, and we got a couple topics we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the winners and losers of the free agency period. Where the heck is Trevor Bauer going to sign? Can the Jays actually make the playoffs? So we got a couple things, and as always, we're going to get to all of your questions and just talk about baseball in general. So let's get right off there to the first question from new YouTuber. New YouTuber, you seem to be winning all the prizes lately, so you're out for a while. But I'll answer your question anyways. And that is, do the Jays get a solid starter? I'm starting to wonder here if the Blue Jays are actually going to be waiting till the midseason here to make a trade. And I'm okay with that. I actually just did a vlog saying that maybe we have to be a little bit, I don't want to say lower our expectations to a certain degree, just in case we don't make the playoffs this year. And I know that's a big thing to say, but we're back to the regular playoff format. So in order for the Jays to really make a good strike towards the playoffs this year, they got to get a solid starter. So I'm glad you asked that question, new YouTuber. So apologize for the background noise. I guess my pug bulldog just likes to make a little racket here while we talk. But anyways, do the Jays get a solid starter? Well, I don't think they're going to sign Trevor Bauer. And I really don't think they should. As I said, the Trevor Bauer commitment, we don't really know how it's going to go, but we do know it's going to be multiple years with an opt-out here and an opt-out there, and just too much money for a player who I think has too much risk. And what do I mean by that? I go back to the years that he's through 4.50 ERA, so Trevor Bauer and the Jays just seems way, way too risky for me. And he's not the person that we need right there. What we really needed was a Sonny Gray type of deal or a Yu Darvish. But again, I'm going back to trades. And another trade that the Jays should really be interesting in or considering is Kyle Hendricks over at Chicago. And that also involves maybe taking on Chris Bryant. They're still sitting there, both of them. I think it's a solid trade for the Jays. But I think we're at a point now where the Jays, if they make that trade because of the additions that they've added to their infield, we could be talking about Cavan Biggio. And I'm not really solid about Cavan Biggio going out. So this goes back to my next point. Do the Jays get a solid starter? Well, yeah, but maybe they wait actually till closer to the All-Star break. And some things might develop at the All-Star break. Maybe Sonny Gray or Luis Castillo isn't traded out. Maybe Cincinnati's having an off year. They're not performing up to snuff. So there's two starters right there, and there's going to be a variety of other names that certainly will pop up there. Additionally to that, the Jays could actually maybe leverage that by waiting midseason, and maybe they don't have to give away somebody like Biggio. And furthermore to that, it allows the Jays to evaluate Biggio, Teoscar, or Lourdes. Because if we're going to make a trade for a pitcher, I strongly suspect it's going to be one of those three that are shipped out. Right now, it seems to be Lourdes as the conversation piece over and over again. I think that has a lot to do with Cleveland. Cleveland was very aggressive in saying that they wanted him for Lindor. I don't know how and what fell through there, but that's exactly what's going to happen if the Jays are making a trade for a solid number two. So by waiting to the All-Star break, it allows them to evaluate Biggio, Teoscar, Lourdes, see how Springer is performing. Maybe there is a trade out there for Randall Grichuk. I'm hearing those rumors as well. And people said, oh, we're going to trade Randall for a solid number two. That's not happening. If we trade Randall away, maybe it's for a bullpen piece. Maybe it's for somebody like Steve Matz, who we just signed, somebody who's a reclamation project. Nobody's going to be taking on Randall Grichuk's contract and getting excited about it. I guess it comes down to, do the Jays pay any of that? And it goes back to the conversation with Tanner Roark as well. And I've said all along, I don't suspect neither one will actually get traded out. Maybe towards the All-Star break, you'll see one get shuffled out in a trade here or there. But I think we're actually stuck with Randall Grichuk and Tanner Roark. Tanner Roark's kind of a, Randall Grichuk actually is performing for value. So we'll have to see. But yeah, the Jays really need us hurry up and get Gray. I said Sonny Gray all along is the pitcher the Jays need to be doing a lot of homework on. And I'm a little bit disappointed to a certain degree that there isn't much more conversation with the Blue Jays in Cincinnati. Even before they took on Marcus Semien, they could have engaged Cincinnati at least in a conversation about Sonny Gray, Mike Moustakas, that gets Moose off Cincinnati's books, something that Cincinnati definitely wants. Moose could have played third base for the Jays, so it really would have solved that problem. And we would have had both Mike Moustakas and Sonny Gray for 3 years, and I believe the commitment's either 79 or 84 million bucks. Very, very affordable for the Jays, especially with Sonny Gray. He's only making 10 million bucks a year. He's a steal. He seems like the exact price tag for the Toronto Blue Jays to be able to get that solid number 2 and still have room to make additional trades or make additional signings in 2022 when the free agency market is just unbelievable. So I really hope that somebody else like the Los Angeles Angels doesn't scoop up Sonny Gray. And I really am worried now that Sonny Gray and the Los Angeles Angels is actually going to come to fruition and that the Angels are going to steal him away. And why am I saying that now? Well, over the last week or two, it looks like the Angels have pivoted strongly away from Trevor Bauer. But the Angels definitely want a number 2 starter. They said this all along that they need a rotation arm. They said that from the beginning. And Sonny Gray definitely checks that off the list. And the Angels, for the first and foremost, have been actually really quiet this offseason. So maybe that's their last big move. And it's something to complement some of the other moves that have been done in the American League. Yeah, Mike Moustakas is interesting. I agree, Colin. If we take on Moose, it's kind of like taking on Chris Bryant or any of these scenarios where I talked about taking on a third baseman. We're kind of just taking on the contract rather than getting the premium out of there. There's only one really true awesome third baseman who I think is coming up in more and more talks, and I did a vlog on him, and that's Jose Ramirez out of Cleveland. But Jose Ramirez, with all the moves that the Jays have done, as much as he would be awesome for the Blue Jays lineup, just doesn't make sense now. We really, as I said, need to focus our attention over to our rotation. So, yeah. And Bauer, wants way too much money. I'm also worried about Bauer and just his personality. I mean, I love players who engage with their fans, but we just went through this with Marcus Stroman and the Twitter, and it was just a lot. And we have a very young team that's very impressionable, and if somebody like Bauer comes in and says, this is the way I want to do it, and you're doing it my way, my, me, it kind of takes away from that team atmosphere. And when you got young players, you really don't want to create that me atmosphere in there. So that's why I think the Jays are actually going to ultimately stay away from Trevor Bauer. But as I said, if it was me, there's still some great solid 2s out there. Definitely Kyle Hendricks. So I said Kyle Hendricks he's with the Chicago Cubs, and the Chicago Cubs are definitely going through rebuild mode. He is an awesome piece there that we could pick up. And you get him for 3, maybe 4 years at around 14 to 16 million bucks a year. And this guy has never pitched over 3.50 ERA except for once. He's a lot like Hyun-Jin Ryu. He's very disciplined, has a ton of control. He's a great asset to your rotation. And I wouldn't mind picking up him plus Chris Bryant. But I suspect if we did that, the conversation again goes back to Biggio. So it goes, which one of our farm or young kids do we really want to trade to make this happen? And that's always very risky. I'm glad somebody brought up Dombrowski and Philadelphia Phillies, because one of the things I wanted to talk about was the real winners of the MLB free agency or offseason this year. And I have to say the Phillies, outside of the Padres are the clear winners. I think we can all agree. Padres just had one huge punch after another, and they are one of the best teams in all of baseball now. In fact, they overcompensated. That's how good they are. But we got to give a lot of credit to the Philadelphia Phillies. They have new GM with Dombrowski out there, and they have done some awesome additions. They got JT signed. They got him signed for under $120 million. It's probably maybe one of the best steals of the offseason. They were able to add Didi as well. So they have done a lot of moves to really solidify that lineup, their infield, their outfield. But the Phillies, a lot like the Blue Jays, just have a lot of questions in regards to pitching, and that's what it's always going to come down to. And I always say it's interesting. A lot of people really love the lineup, but it's very hard to be a winning team, a team that's going to be in contention for the postseason, unless you have a solid 1, 2, 3 starters. And I'm not saying your 3 has to be as good as your 1, but you need 3 solid, dependable people there to get you through there. Unless you're a team like the Yankees or maybe like the Blue Jays of the past when we had Bautista and Edwin, and you're going to bat your way to winning every game, you really need the pitching, and that's where I worry about the Jays there as well. And we really lack there, just too many question marks. So I always say pitching, pitching, pitching. Are the Yankees going to make another trade? I do think so. I think they got some room there. It's either going to come down. There's been a little bit of talk about Josh Hader, but he comes up every year. I just did a vlog on him that came out today. And I said if there's any team that's going to pick him up, I actually think it's going to be the Mets. The Mets really wanted to add a strong left-handed reliever. They lost out on Brad Hand. So Josh Hader kind of is even better than that. So who are the Yankees going to target? Well, I think it's going to come down to pitching. I think if the Yankees are going to get creative, they're going to add another solid starter. And I think if the Yankees have the ability to do that before the season starts, it's going to be a huge blow to the Blue Jays. Especially, could you imagine? I don't think it's going to be Sonny Gray just because there was a little bit of a relationship with the Yankees and Sonny Gray that went sour. But there's certainly the potential for the Yankees, and the Yankees are always the Yankees, to go through and add a solid starter there. And if the Yankees are going to make a trade, that's where it's going to be. If the Yankees are going to make a signing, I think it's going to be Brett Gardner right now. They've talked about that. I think if they get Brett Gardner, it still leaves them with about $5 million before they go over that luxury tax. So that's not too bad, and it gives them some opportunities to maybe make another signing or be patient and wait till the midseason and see what their needs are there. Yeah, the Mets did add Loop. I agree there. So, and Loop, love Loop. I almost want to say Loop. But anyways, I do think that they might go a little bit higher. But the Mets are in an interesting position because if I was the Mets, I would actually just leave your bullpen alone. Go out, use that extra money to sign Jackie Bradley Jr. and call it a day. You don't need to add Trevor Bauer to your rotation if you are the New York Mets, especially with the moves that the Mets have made this season. They got solid pitching right through there. So that's why I would do it. Where's my Blue Jays jersey? Yeah. You know what? I realized the time as this was starting, and I threw it on there, and I was like, oh my. So one of those days where you just had to get it going there. I didn't want to be any later. So that's why no Blue Jays jersey today. I do have the hat going, though. But talking about the other winners of the offseason so far, as I said, Philadelphia, very surprising. They said they were going to have a limited budget. Looked like it was going to be, a little bit dire there in the Philadelphia situation. And all of a sudden they go and they get JT signed, they get Didi signed, and the fans are excited again in Philadelphia. So I got to give credit to them. I also got to give credit to the Padres. They've done a lot of great moves. And the Mets. That would be number 3. Nothing against the Jays. The Jays would be like right there at number 4, but the Mets have done some great moves as well this offseason. More importantly, though, if we're talking about the losers, I guess, it comes down to certainly the biggest loser, Colorado. And what a mess with Nolan Arenado. Geez, I don't even think they got back decent prospects, certainly not high prospects. They got to pay $50 million. It sounds a lot like David Price when they shipped him out. And I just said this in my vlog when I did it earlier. There's just got to be a ton of animosity there between Nolan Arenado and Colorado. I mean, they must have just been banging fists over and over again. So they were just happy to ship him out. But Colorado, what a missed opportunity on getting prospects. I don't know what they're going to do with Kyle Friedland they have there for the next 2 years. They just got him for $5 million. Are they going to ship him out? What are they going to do with Trevor Story? He's going to be gone at the end of the year too. Why aren't they shopping Trevor Story and going into a full rebuild mode? Colorado, if I was a fan, I would be massively frustrated. What a missed opportunity this year. Another loser, I'd have to give it to Tampa Bay. I don't know what Tampa Bay is doing there. I mean, they still got an okay team. They shipped away their top two starters. They could have been competitive this year. And I know they like to sort of recycle players into prospects. It just seems to be Tampa Bay's way. They're a lot like the Oakland Athletics that way. Got to be massively frustrating to be a Tampa Bay Rays fan. And these are the moves that management does to the Tampa Bay fans. It's going to make them... I guess I should be happy, because if they keep doing this and sort of pissing everybody off, pardon my language, you're going to see a Tampa Bay team in Montreal. So that's what it's going to come down to there. Pardon me as I have a sip here. But as I said, it's got to be tough. Yeah, Pirates fans, somebody just mentioned that. That came up as well. I guess the question is, how low will the Pirates lose 100 games? I guess the Pirates are playing for prospects. I've been there. The one thing I'll say about the Pirates is I'll give them credit. If you're going to do a rebuild, do it right. Strip your team down. Get as much prospects as you can. Put yourself in a position to get the number one prospect or for the first year. Do a little bit better the next year. Get a top 1 through 5 that year too. And then really add those pieces together. And that's what the Pirates have to do. It's going to be a long, long season and a long couple seasons for Pirates fans, but at least they're getting it done. Could you imagine being a Colorado fan, though, as I go back to this again, and not doing that rebuild right, not getting any prospects in return, then seeing all your stars leave, and then you're left doing a rebuild with nothing? Very, very frustrating. So I got to give Pirates a little bit of credit there. I think if there was a number 3 team that I would consider a loser on the offseason so far this year, I don't want to say the Los Angeles Angels, because they got a great team, but I think they really needed to add something, so I've been a little bit concerned there. Braves as well. There's a lot of big teams just haven't added pieces, but I guess if we go back to the Braves here, they're probably just waiting for Marcell Ozuna. I think the big deal with Ozuna was he was waiting, had his fingers crossed, so there was going to be a universal DH, and that would have made Marcell Ozuna's stock skyrocket. It didn't happen, so just reading one of the comments there, pardon me. That made it skyrocket. It didn't happen, so now he's stuck kind of like, okay, what am I going to get? Who do I want to kind of sign with? How many years? I suspect he'll get 4 years out of Atlanta, but that might be Atlanta's last move. And it's interesting. The National League is a beast. It's really interesting how it's flipped the situation there if you look at it. If you look maybe 10 years ago, it used to be the American League teams, the American League teams. Now it's the National League teams that are incredibly strong. So kudos to them for making that flip. We'll see what happens there. And now it's going back to Trevor Bauer here. Somebody has talked about that. We've kind of mentioned him throughout the conversation here. Where is Trevor Bauer going to end up at this moment? Now, did we get Steve Matz so the Mets could open up their budget and get Trevor Bauer? Rumor is they've made an offer. We'll see what happens. Is Trevor Bauer going to the Los Angeles Angels? Well, I don't think they're in on him. Is it the Dodgers? Maybe the Dodgers are that quiet team. At this point, I'm actually scratching my head as where Trevor Bauer is going to end up, because I don't know. At this point, I guess with everything that I've heard, I would lean towards the Mets. But if they do sign Trevor Bauer, that certainly assures that Marcus Stroman won't be re-signed. And that comes back to the point I wanted to make. Is Marcus Stroman going to regret taking that qualifying offer and not going out and trying to get a multi-year deal this year? Imagine if Marcus Stroman was one of the free agents in conversation, especially with Tanaka going over to Japan. He would have probably been like the number 2 most coveted pitcher this year. Even with this sort of bounce here and there, if Marcus Stroman gets injured this season or he pitches like crap, it'll be interesting to see how long the Mets really put up with him, especially if they do sign Trevor Bauer. They get Noah Syndergaard back, Carlos Carrasco. The list goes on, and obviously Jacob deGrom with the Mets. Maybe Marcus Stroman is expendable all of a sudden, and that's really going to lower his stock, and I think that's going to frustrate Marcus Stroman. I'm not saying anything against Marcus Stroman. It'd just be interesting to happen there. And then this goes to another point that I wanted to talk about today, and that's Aaron Sanchez. And I really hope maybe the Jays just decide to take a shot on Sanchez, sign him to a minor league contract, see if he's willing to take it. I suspect strongly he would, and sort of transform Sanchez into an awesome bullpen piece. Maybe the type of pitcher where he's not putting a strain on his fingers for multi-innings, and that might clear up his blister issue. Really see what's going on with his shoulder and his elbow. I know that was a big concern and led him to going into surgery, but I would really, really like it if the Jays took a shot on Aaron Sanchez, not as a starter, but I think Sanchez has a lot of potential to reclaim himself as an awesome bullpen piece. And maybe I feel this way because of Chris Carpenter. And if you don't know the Chris Carpenter story in the Blue Jays, basically what happened was Chris Carpenter was there with Roy Halladay. Chris Carpenter was getting injured. His ERA was all over the place. He had injury after injury after injury, surgery, and the Jays cut him loose. Well, we all know what happened to Chris Carpenter after that. He became arguably one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. I'm not saying that Aaron Sanchez has that potential, but that's what always leads me to go, maybe we should give him a shot. So it comes down to one other thing I wanted to talk about today, and then we'll answer a few more questions and wrap up. What do you guys think of the Marcus Semien signing? Obviously, he's going over to second base. I suspect Marcus Semien, if he has an awesome year and even an up year with the Blue Jays, he's going to look for the free agency market. He wants as big a contract as possible. So I don't see Marcus Semien in a Blue Jays lineup beyond 2021. He's just a one-year rental. Nothing wrong with that at $18 million. If we got the money to add it, okay, hey, let's go for it. Nothing wrong with that. But he's definitely going to be shipped out. So as long as he plays second base, I guess that's okay for the Jays. It allows them to solve that third base problem for at least 1 year. But I really hope that Marcus Semien has that up year, that year that we're all hoping. I said he's only 1 year removed from 30-plus home runs. He's an awesome defender. What I don't want to see the Jays do is get in a situation with Marcus Semien and Bo Bichette, because I just read this recently, where they're moving them positions because they seem that Semien might be better at shortstop. Unfair. Give Bo Bichette his chance to grow at shortstop. I've said this all along. Really, really give him that chance. It's too young to really judge him and see what type of player he is. So just leave him alone, at least for one more season, and then judge him after that. Vladdy, he's going to be playing first base. And that's going to be a very interesting conversation with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I really, really hope that he considers it strongly as a plus. Because if Vladdy plays first base, there's not as much pressure as third. And it really gives him a chance to concentrate on his bat and production behind the plate. And it allows Vladdy to become the player that we all think Vladdy's going to be. So we'll wait and see. Yeah, I was just reading this. Somebody just put up about the 154 game schedule. And Union's considering this. And I agree. I always said 162 games. I would be surprised if they got that off. I always thought it was going to be a May start myself, but we'll have to wait and see. I hate talking, sorry, as I have a sip here, about COVID, but I guess it comes down to the vaccination program and all that other stuff and jazz that goes with that. But I could definitely see a bit of a delay. However, an expanded playoff. I'm excited about this. I'm sorry, I'm a playoff guy. And I think baseball has to give in to the fans a little bit. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having an 8-team playoff. I really kind of liked how they did it last year. And I really, really strongly consider doing it again. It allows some smaller market teams to have a chance to play baseball. And if baseball's never going to have a salary cap, they're going to have $30 or $40 million contracts at teams like, Milwaukee or Tampa Bay, or, if they go to Montreal, just these smaller market teams could never absorb. Well, then give the smaller market teams a fighting chance and have that expanded playoff. So we'll wait and see. Yeah, Vladdy lost 50 pounds. This is the interesting conversation. Vladdy's done everything that you want in a player who wants to get better, who wants to condition himself, who wants to play third base. So we got to give a lot of credit to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and what he's done. So I guess the question is, though, how hard of a conversation is it with Vladdy to say, listen, we really appreciate everything you've done with your conditioning, but we still need you to play first base. And I know Vladdy was down in the Mexican League, or one of the leagues down there. I'm pretty sure it was the Mexican League. He was playing third base, and he still made 8 errors over something like 16 games. So like an error every other game. Sometimes I think one game he had 2 errors. I don't know. I didn't really watch it, and I shouldn't judge it because it's kind of like preseason baseball. But I see Vladimir Guerrero Jr. as the first baseman DH of the future. I see Rowdy Tellez. I know there's a lot of... Everybody loves Tellez, and I don't see what the huge hype is on him. I'm sorry. He is a bench bat, in my opinion, a strong bench bat, but he's still a bench bat and a trade piece. There is no comparison between Rowdy Tellez and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. It's just not what it is, except that they play the exact same positions. So one will probably have to go, and to me, it's no question that it's going to be Tellez. I think the Jays are going to lean towards Paxton over Bauer. And the reason why they're going to go towards Paxton, he is, if we look at the last 3 pitchers that the Jays could sign, if you take Trevor Bauer out of that, I guess it comes down to Paxton, Taijuan Walker, and Jake Odorizzi. It's one of those 3. So, and that's why somebody just asked Liam about Taijuan Walker. James Paxton's looking for that 2-year deal, but nobody's stepped up yet, except I heard maybe the Red Sox. I don't know if there's truth to that. So it's up to the Jays. Do they want to sign him for 2 years? Taijuan Walker is looking for that 2-year contract. He's maybe even looking for a 3-year contract. The rumors with Taijuan Walker right now seems to be down in Miami or in Seattle. So I suspect he's probably going to sign in one of those 2 spots. And I don't know what's going to happen with Jake Odorizzi at this point. As I said, he's been connected with the Jays. But Jake Odorizzi wants between 45 to 50 million bucks. And he is, I think his ERA was over 5 last year. I know it was 3 the year before. Pardon me. He's one of those yo-yo pitchers, in my opinion. So he's certainly not even worth the commitment for 45 to 50 million bucks, just as far as I'm concerned. So to me, if I'm a Blue Jays and Blue Jays management, I feel like it's going to be Paxton. And why James Paxton? Because we can get him for 1 year, maybe between 10 and 12 million bucks. Doesn't blow the budget. If he ends up getting hurt, and Paxton gets hurt every year. That's one of the things that have been consistent about James Paxton. He's never had a year where he's pitched a full 32 games. So don't count on that. You're looking at somewhere around 25 if you're lucky with Paxton. But for those 25 games that Paxton pitches, he pitches hard, and he is one of the best pitchers in baseball when he is on. Even with his fastball down, he was pitching somewhere between 97 to 99. Now it's 94 to 96. 94 to 96 is still very, very solid. Yeah, that's what I said. Rowdy Tellez, 21 home runs. So it's interesting to see what happens with Rowdy Tellez. As I said, it's just one of those unique situations where the Jays have 2 players who are very comparable. And I mean comparable, but the positions that they play, first base, DH. So that's what I said. If Tellez really starts putting up those numbers again, I could see him being an awesome mid-piece trade. I know that might be hard to swallow, but I'd certainly be more happier to send somebody like Tellez and maybe Randall Grichuk out, or Tellez and Tanner Roark, as opposed to entering the conversation of Tanner Roark and Lourdes, or Tanner Roark and Biggio. So maybe Tellez is that piece that allows us to not have to trade away any of those other guys. That's what I'm seeing there. It's going to be very similar to Alejandro Kirk. People got very excited about Alejandro Kirk when he came up. To me, he looks a lot like a Vladdy. I think it's just a body type. I'm not sure what they're going to do, but if there is another player who I could see the Jays making tradable, it's going to be Kirk. We just got a lot of players in the catching position, and I think they're going to actually take their time and maybe invest in Jano and see what he can do. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. And that comes back to the last piece before we slowly start to wrap up here. Can the Blue Jays make the playoffs? Well, let's assume that it's not an expanded format to begin with. It's back to the original one. So that means the Jays are fighting the Yankees for the American League East. Pardon me. And at the moment, I think the Yankees got them. I always said the American League East was up for grabs, that the Jays could make that, but a solid number 2 signing like a Sonny Gray or better. They haven't. The Yankees have done some decent moves. They're still a very strong team. You know, they got Stanton, they got Judge. The list goes on there with the Yankees, as well as Garrett Cole. And as long as he's healthy, I suspect that the Yankees are going to win the American League East. And if we can assume that the Chicago White Sox will win their division, and I'll make a prediction here and maybe knock on wood, the Angels are overdue and the Los Angeles Angels wins theirs. That means for those 2 wild card spots, the Jays are fighting with the Oakland Athletics, the Minnesota Twins, the Houston Astros, the Tampa Bay Rays, and maybe even the Boston Red Sox. I mean, they're a mess, but Chris Sale, they got a lot of players coming back, especially after the All-Star break. That could be a huge impact for Boston. The point is, there's a lot of teams chasing 2 playoff spots. And out of all those teams, we can assume that the Minnesota Twins are arguably the best, in my opinion. So that means the Jays are chasing Tampa Bay, Oakland, Houston, all those teams that I mentioned for 1 spot. And if we do make that 1 spot, say we do get it, we're probably going to have to start Ryu in that game. Maybe we win. Maybe we make it to the first round of those wild card playoffs. Well, Ryu's going to have to start game 2. So who's our ace that starts off game 1 of the playoffs? Tanner Roark? Robbie Ray? Nate Pearson, he'll be shut down by then. So he's not even a question. He's going to be done. Most people say 25 games. That's it this year. He's certainly not going over 150 innings. So he's not a conversation. He won't even be around come mid-September, let alone the playoffs. So that's why the Jays need to get a little bit more, maybe lower their expectations. And Ryu doesn't have to start game 1. I guess the point there is Ryu would be the pitcher that played that 1 game playoff game for the wild card. But usually those games come back to back very close with game 1 of the first round of the playoffs, and Ryu probably wouldn't be ready until game 2. And you usually, in those 3 games, you need 3 pitchers. And that goes back to the thing that I was saying at the beginning. They need 3 solid pitchers. And that's what happened to the Jays this year when they faced Tampa Bay. We got shot down by Snell and Morton. So as a Jays fan, I just got to be a little bit realistic that maybe this isn't our year for the playoffs, but definitely next year. And I think maybe we just got teased a little bit because of that expanded playoffs. And if the expanded playoffs don't happen again, the Jays just have to wait to 2022. However, 2022 is awesome. Look at the free agent starters that are out there. Clayton Kershaw, he's probably going to re-sign and retire as a Dodger. Noah Syndergaard's available. Justin Verlander. I know these guys are a little bit older, but the pitching is just insane. The starting second baseman and the shortstops are just as good with Trevor Story on the market. Maybe 2022 is the year that the Jays really give that knockout punch, kind of like what the Padres and the Mets did this year, and then they become the team that they are going to be the best in the American League. And I really see that coming for the Blue Jays. I really do. We just have too much talent not to be wasted. Even if 1 or 2 players doesn't come up to snuff, the Jays are there. They just need that extra year. And I think it comes down to 2 players. 2 players for the Blue Jays really need to rise to their potential. And then the Jays fans and us can get excited. And that's obviously Vladdy being the player that we need Vladdy to be, and Nate Pearson being that solid number 2. Because if we can stretch Nate Pearson out to 150 innings this year, that means we can get him close to 180, maybe even 200. So basically a full season for 2022. And if Nate Pearson is pitching hard and awesome, and we can add another solid number 2, that means you got for 2022, Hyun-Jin Ryu, that awesome number 2, whoever it is, Nate Pearson, that's a solid number 1, 2, 3 right there to just start working with. And as I said, if you got a solid 1, 2, 3 plus a decent lineup, wow. And as I close here, I got to give the Jays a lot of credit, though, because I've been talking about starting. But the biggest need for the Blue Jays, in my opinion, was starting pitching this year. We didn't get that done, but we did check off a lot of awesome things. We got the third base situation kind of figured out with moving Biggio over there. Our bullpen is just awesome. I think Yates is just going to come back and be a total star for the Jays. I'm really excited about that, as well as Chatwood. Maybe even we get Rosenthal on there. So that's really, really exciting for the Jays. And our lineup is really solid. We have a 1 through 9. And what I really like about the Jays lineup at the moment is one of the things that kind of frustrated me at the time about the last Jays playoff run, and I love Bautista, Edwin, Donaldson. Don't get me wrong. They were awesome players. That bat flip will live in my memory forever. But we were a team that was a little bit off-sided. We just had a lot of power. The Jays lineup now not only has power, but we have the opportunity to steal bases, to manufacture runs. And when you can manufacture runs and create runs rather than just relying on the bat, that makes your team so deadly. In fact, the Jays remind me a lot of the Kansas City Royals that took the Blue Jays out of the playoffs in 2015. A young team, a team that had an awesome dynamic lineup, a fast lineup, 1 through 9, an amazing bullpen. We just need a starter. So we'll see what happens. Next week's topic, we're going to actually start talking about what's coming up for spring training. Where are the Jays going to play? I'm hoping by next week we have a little bit more of a clearer answer of who and what's going on with Trevor Bauer. And maybe, just maybe, the Jays finally get that signing done. Like we talked about, maybe it's Walker, maybe it's Paxton, hopefully not Odorizzi. And we'll go from there. And we're also going to start ranking the teams. Another thing, if you're watching my vlogs, we're going to kind of transition from talking about trades just because we're getting closer to the season starting. So we're going to be going through all 30 teams, starting with the worst to the first. So obviously Pittsburgh probably is going to be number 30. So we're going to have 2 or 3 teams each week leading up to the start of the season, and we'll go through there. You'll have to wait for the Jays because obviously they're a top 10 team, no question about it. But tune in for that. And as always, once we get closer to 500 subscribers, we're going to be doing another giveaway there. So I'm excited for that. Really appreciate everybody who's joined me here at the beginning before I have any green screens, any of those fancy things that some of the other vloggers have. I've only been doing this for over 2 months now, so I'm just in the process of getting a green screen and all those microphones and things. So really excited about that. And we got some other exciting things coming up this year. I'm hoping to head down to St. Mary's to the Baseball Hall of Fame and vlog that as well. And obviously, once the border opens up and things get back to normal, my dream is to do an awesome vlog at Cooperstown, but probably won't be this year. More importantly, we'll do another talk 2 weeks from now. So that's going to be on Valentine's Day, actually. I guess we could spend Valentine's Day together. But we'll do that one at 2 o'clock again. So we'll go for that and we'll talk there. Any other questions, we'll answer that. And before I finish, I'm going to answer one more question that just popped up here, and then we'll close down for the day. And that is from Christopher. When do you think Austin Martin will play for the Jays? Austin Martin, he is the big one for the Jays. He is, in my effect, the future of the Blue Jays, along with Biggio, Vladdy, and Nate. Along with Bo, Vladdy, and Nate. Nothing against Biggio, but I said he could get traded out. And Austin Martin. Well, Austin's never really had a chance to play in the minors yet. And that's the issue with Austin Martin. Last year's minor league program was a complete waste. He needs a full season to play in the minors, probably 2. If you look at the list of players, and somebody just sent it to me, who have skipped the minor leagues altogether, it's a very, very rare group of people, and they're superstars. And Austin Martin will be a superstar, but we got to give him the time to grow and adjust. The other thing for Austin Martin is he's played a lot of positions over at Vanderbilt. He's played center field, he's played left field, he's played shortstop, second base, third base. So, hey, those are all awesome things. Austin Martin's not a DJ LeMahieu. He's not a Kevin Biggio, though. He's our center fielder of the future. And by giving him 2 years in the minors, that's kind of cool. Allows him to grow. I suspect he'll probably end up in AA next year. Maybe tip his hat at AAA. Spend his whole year in AAA in 2022, and then we see him for that September call-up. That's how I see Austin Martin going, especially if we're in contention and we add a superstar like Austin Martin. That's really exciting. And to go further with that, most people say that when we signed George Springer, he's got about 2 years left in center field. He's slowly declining each year. Much, much better than Randall Grichuk's -8 defensive rating. So I'm not saying anything against George Springer. But by the time Austin Martin comes up to play in 2023 full-time, it's going to be that time that we move Randall Grichuk over to left field. That's where he's going to play out the remainder of his career. No question about that. Don't know what's going to happen with Lourdes or Teoscar 2 or 3 years from now. Guess we'll cross that road when we have to. But think about how exciting that's going to be in 2023. We'll still have Vladdy, Bo. We'll have Nate Pearson stretched right out. We'll have an outfield of Springer and Austin Martin. Maybe even Jordan Grosjean's up at that time. It just goes on and on. Plus, if we add more people, that's really, really cool. And Ryu will be at the end of his contract there, so maybe we ante up and get another huge starter. Future's really good for the Jays. So that's why, as I close here, I don't mind if we miss the playoffs as long as it doesn't cost us the future. I don't want to see us go out and leverage everybody for a solid starter like David Price. I love David Price, but we gave up too much in that last run. I think Blue Jays management realizes that. We don't need to empty out the farm, the complete farm to get this done. We just got to be a little bit patient, a little bit manipulative in our moves. Pardon me as I close up here. And that's what Jays need to do. So 2021 isn't our year. It should be our year to know what we need to do to make 2022 our year. So we'll have to wait and see. I hope everybody stays safe. Thanks for listening to me ramble on here. We'll be back on Valentine's Day at 2 p.m. and we'll talk everything baseball then. Any questions, lay them on me. I'm always excited. Everybody stay safe. We'll talk soon. Take care, guys. Bye now.